What is up? What is up, people? My name is Tanner. You are watching Stoned History. This is the show where we get high and talk about something to do that happened in the past. So tomorrow I'm going to the dispo. We're getting some more flour, but we have a little bit here. Don't know a specific strain. I think it's Georgia Pine, if I had to guess, or if memory struck me well. That's not what the show's about, though. Okay, we don't care about the strain names. We care about the weed. Anyway, I'm gonna smoke this and then talk about mixed martial arts. The history of mixed martial arts, that is. Basically, the history of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Ow. Anyway, so there was this guy. Or there was this type of martial arts called jiu-jitsu. It's very old, very ancient, very, strict. So, essentially, jiu-jitsu consists of, holds and various things like that. Very cool form of martial arts, but that's not what we're talking about. It's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that all begins, would it be early 1900s, I think. Basically, this guy named Helio Gracie, is, this super, weak fighter overall, but he's got this, really good thing about him. He's, super quick. So he starts developing these holds. Basically, the goal for him is to get to your neck as quick as possible and choke you out. Helio Gracie started this fight against this other fighter named Kimura. So, Kimura had a condition for this fight. Let me just see if I'm getting these facts correct, okay? Okay, we need to verify our source. So we are going to verify our source. Fuck. La 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 la. Yeah, no. It was Masahiko Kimura versus Helio Gracie. We are introduced to basically one of the first MMA fights, mixed martial arts fights in human history. Jiu-Jitsu versus Helio's more modern take on Jiu-Jitsu. Not really given a name at the time. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So, the rules are, if Kimura loses this fight, he cannot come back to Japan. Japan is a shithole country back in this time, and basically kind of a, empire still. We're still in, this post-colonial thing. You have to understand, they were part of the Axis during World War II, so they were okay with some fucked shit. They still were during this period. This was 1951. So, yeah. So Kimura's fighting for his life, literally. Helio doesn't know this, by the way. Helio's not aware, and in fact, in interviews about this fight, that came out, decades later, because, history, Helio kind of just talks about, that's kind of fucked, and does not feel bad for what happened during the fight then, And I guess I should explain what happened during this fight. So, Kimura decided to get an arm lock, basically a double wrist lock on Helio Gracie, and just starts cranking it. He just fucking cranks it and cranks it and cranks it. Helio's tapping. The fight is Actually, no. Helio is not tapping. That's the crucial thing about this. Helio didn't understand what was going on and just kept fighting like it was normal, trying to escape. But here's the thing about this specific lock that Kimura developed. You're not getting out if it's, like, fully locked in. It's, like, fucking impossible to get out of, like, a double wrist. It's hard. It's hard. And especially for a guy who never got hit with the Kimura lock before, he's not getting out of this hold. You're not. So he breaks Helio Gracie's arm. Snaps it in half. Of course, it heals. He goes back to fighting. But this basically marks this fight, this singular event, this blip in history, marks the beginning of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and mixed martial arts as a whole. It's very interesting, very fascinating. The Gracie family goes on to basically be, like, the innovators of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like, in UFC in general, honestly. But, like, goes on. Then the Gracie family's goal pretty much becomes marketing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There were some rules to BJJ. You basically had to be rich. Because you had to wear robes for, like, Gracie's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specifically. You had to wear the robes. You had to wear the gi, as it's called. If you didn't do that, you could not be in this club. So there was this other form of fighting that kind of developed as, like, a counter action to BJJ, or what the Gracies were doing, called Vale Tudo. And this word literally means anything goes. Essentially, the rules are, hey, don't kill the person and fight. The people, like, ringleaders in Vale Tudo circuits kind of start, like, challenging the Gracie. Whole interesting history on this, and eventually leads up to a event where one of the Gracie members basically gathered his boys and marched through a city in Brazil to a rival fighting club's headquarters, and basically shit went down like Double Dragon. Just started, like, beating the fuck out of people. It's never specified who threw the first punch, but, one could guess. Eventually, the Gracie family... Gum tastes good. The Gracie family basically realizes that the only way to, like, market their weird fighting thing is to do, like, a demonstration of it, like, internationally. And the way they do this is through pay-per-view. Pay-per-view and, like, hosted events. And yeah, no, by this point, we're just talking about, like, early UFC history. So essentially, like, the first few pay-per-view events were just, like, showing off how cool Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was as, like, in, like, a tournament bracketed form to prove, like, which martial arts was the superior. I have watched, the first 10 UFC pay-per-views in preparation for this video. And yeah, that's pretty much what they were. It was basically just, like, Royce Gracie or, like, some other fighter who was trained in BJJ fighting against, like, weird-ass boxers, Ken Shamrock, who's a professional wrestler, all sorts of weird people, who would also go on to eventually have, like, their own stories in the UFC as well, and other fighting circuits. But it's just interesting to note that, like, the first 10 UFC events were just the Gracie family flexing how superior Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is as a martial arts form. And it is. It is superior in every sense of the word. It's I mean, because you got to think, essentially the goal of BJJ is get to the throat as quick as possible and choke this fucker out. Pretty much it's superior in every way. Because it is like the first mixed martial art, right? Like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu obviously is that like in like Helio Gracie and the other Gracie members were inspired by traditional jiu-jitsu, but they added like their own twist to it. It's fun, it's interesting. It's just something that I wanted to talk about to y'all today. Um, I love mixed martial arts. The shit goes hard. I may not be like the most, you know, die-hard fan, but this shit is fun. And like the stories that develop around some of these fighters and families are genuinely insane. Anywho, that's all I really wanted to talk about today. Bye. Bye. Goodbye.